Hey, what is up? My name is Devon. This is Games Over Coffee Consulting. We're talking about Cybervoid today. The way that I'm going to talk about this game is different from usual. I'm just wanting to talk about it just kind of conceptually and talk about its design philosophy. If you have a game that you just want me to talk about its design philosophy and you're just curious to know my take on it, you can go ahead and email me at info@gamesover.coffee, or you can join the Discord and DM me there. So the game has some really heavy themes in it, and I really like that about it. The developer had told me that thematically the game aims to tell a story involving different levels of real and artificial consciousness to tie into the theme of the player's decisions within the city. He talked about there was a bunch of entities they had biological human minds, digitized human minds, artificial personality cores, pseudo-consciousness entities, and Silicon Life and collective consciousness. So a lot of really heavy stuff going on here. There's never been anything simple that talks about consciousness in a bunch of different ways like this. So this is it's really heavy in the sense of what it's aiming for, right? What you're going to talk about and what you're diving the player into, this kind of experience, I think is really interesting. It really reminds me of Disco Elysium in that way, because Disco Elysium has this idea of philosophy throughout and different types of philosophy. But that's the first game that came to my mind when I was playing this game. But that is just kind of thematically what was happening in the game. And thematically, I think that is what is in it, what's in Cybervoid. But I didn't really feel any of those themes while I was playing it. When I was playing Disco Elysium, for example, the very first thing that happens in that game, if you haven't played it, you must play this game. But the game opens in this like super unique way. Your avatar is waking up, and they metaphorically describe your regaining consciousness as the beginning of a universe. And it's insane, the kind of poetic stuff that they go into. And from the instant that you begin the game, you understand exactly what this game is going to be like. Like the game essentially just begins as your avatar, who is a detective, who's a drunk detective, who's just waking up after, drinking himself asleep, right? So you just wake up on the floor and you try to get your clothes together. And that's all that happens. Now, like, that would be a stupid, I feel like, intro, kind of a tropey intro for any other game or for any other story for that matter. We've heard the story 1,000 times is what I mean. But when you played it in this game, it's so utterly unique because of the way that they show it. But not just that, but because they make everything that your character interacts with as one of the most important decisions that is ever happening to this person. And that's throughout the entire game, but not just throughout the aesthetics, it's through their communication with the mechanics also. You go to someone and you just talk to them. You have different types of ways of talking to them, right? You have the empathetic way of trying to understand them a little bit more. You have the analytical way, or you have the dictionary type of way, or the academic type of way. There's so many different ways that are integrated into your communication. So the whole point, is that the game is really situated in this kind of really deep dive into human consciousness and what it means to interact with another person. And it's deeply philosophical, and it's really cool. The reason why my mind went to that was because the themes about philosophy and stuff like that and consciousness, are the same throughout both Cybervoid and Disco Elysium. But in Disco Elysium, whereas it's right there on the surface of the gameplay, Cybervoid isn't really. Cybervoid kind of feels like it has all of those deep themes, but they're underneath a surface layer of just basic gameplay. I guess if I were to play the game all the way through, because right now it's just a demo from what I've played, and I didn't get that far, I'm not exactly sure. I played through a couple times. The gameplay is basically a point-and-click kind of adventure. So the opening of the game is you wake up, there is an instruction given to you, a direct instruction, and you can either obey or disobey that instruction. And I think this is a little lacking context. Maybe that's just what they're going for, just this kind of idea where, depending on who you are, maybe you'll obey or disobey. I chose obey both times, and I know both of these dialogue boxes, they're randomized. But choosing whether to obey or disobey, I think, is lacking context, and I'm not sure if that's if that's supposed to be that way, because when I look at that choice, it doesn't really mean anything to me. I think to most gamers, they'll probably pick disobey because that's not necessarily something you can do in a lot of games. But if you're not a gamer, or if you're just someone who's not into the genre a whole lot, and you just come upon this dialogue trait, it doesn't really mean anything, right? Apart from the gamer perspective of just giving you a choice at the beginning to either obey or disobey your first mission, right? After you play the game for a little bit longer, then you can understand that you're some sort of artificial consciousness or a robot or something. I'm not exactly sure, but you can't really communicate with others. All you can do is listen to them, and they communicate with you, which I think is a really interesting take on talking to people. But I'm not sure if it actually means anything to the player. But it feels like I'm just playing a regular game that has some really, really deep themes in the story and in the lore, but I don't feel them as a player very much. Now, I do feel some stuff happening. There are some really compelling scenes that happen in here. One of them was the simulated lives when you come over to like one of these thing that is running a simulation of a universe, right? So you come over to a computer that is running some sort of simulation, and then based on whatever you decided to do previously, you can either save the lives or kill the universe. It was an emotional moment of some sort for me because I decided to kill the universe first and just to see what would happen, but it doesn't really mean anything to me. It didn't feel poignant to me. It was kind of an emotional thing just because, you are talking about consciousness. If you've played Soma before, Soma has this really interesting scene about simulating the consciousness or having a real consciousness that's trapped inside of a computer. You have to interrogate them without letting on too much about who you are. And every time that you make a mistake, then you have to kill the person by restarting the computer. And it's really interesting, but it's being felt right there in the mechanic of killing the person, right? You have to kill the person and then interrogate them and then kill them and interrogate them. Whereas, again, in Cybervoid, the emotional moment of killing these consciousnesses, they don't feel poignant in any way. It doesn't really feel like it alters my gameplay or alters my emotional state. It really just kind of feels like a game mechanic that happened, but doesn't really do anything to my character. I don't really feel anything from it. I really like that there's a character in here named Joe. I thought that was great. If you're unaware, I have a character also named Joe in my Games Over Coffee channel. And I thought that was really cool that we have the same named robot. That's pretty awesome. So I guess what I'm saying here is that the themes of consciousness here, I want to see reflected in the gameplay. And it's like, well, how would you do that, right? How would you put it like this heavy theme of consciousness into your gameplay? Because right now, what it feels like to me is it feels like like I said, the lore itself has a lot of really heavy themes in it, but I don't feel it reflected in the gameplay. And it feels kind of like BioShock at this moment to me. If you think about the way that BioShock played, you have this, really heavy, maybe ultra capitalist or ultra free market or something like that, individualism kind of philosophy happening within the lore here. And BioShock is like kind of an insane, it is insane. It's an insane amount of crazy stuff that's happening in that city and in that lore. But a lot of it is only felt through listening to the audio diaries and kind of taking in your surroundings and kind of understanding what's happening. Because basically the main gameplay is just shooting, right? It's just shooting people. And sometimes you get to feel some of the thematic stuff, like when you're buying weapons in a vending machine. I think that's really cool. But other than that, right, it's mainly just a first-person shooter with a heavy lore surrounding it. And that's what I feel like in Cybervoid. I don't ever feel like I get to dip my toes into that heavy philosophical stuff, those heavy themes that are seen within here. Maybe that happens later on as you play the game, and I'm not exactly sure. Again, I haven't played a whole lot of the game, but the mini games that I did play, like guiding your little light through the grid in order to make a connection. I can't remember exactly what I was doing. There's that, and then there's, of course, saving the lives. There's also gating mechanics, right, which are you're trying to race the destruction of the city, and you're also trying to carry out a command. It just feels like a lot of Metroidvania-esque kind of gating mechanics that are, interesting to do game-wise, but they don't feel, again, like I'm doing anything for any purpose. And I'm not sure, again, if that's supposed to be the point here. Kind of like Oil Pit. if mystery is supposed to be the thing that we're getting out of the game here, or maybe the mechanics are supposed to replicate the ambiguity of understanding consciousness and whether or not you should or shouldn't destroy certain consciousnesses or whatever. I don't really feel any of that through the gameplay. Disco Elysium has these themes of philosophy in it. The whole gameplay in that game is about communication. Like it's not only about that, but that's literally what you're doing throughout the whole game, is just talking to other people. And you have different abilities that affect the way that you talk to others. And through that gameplay, you kind of understand the themes that are at play here. For example, there's a lot of other games, say like Fallout 4, where you talk to other people and you have a nuanced way of talking to them, more or less. But when you talk to the person, there's nothing more to it. It's just that you're talking to them, right? That you're carrying out some sort of action. Either you want something from them or you're trying to find out a piece of information or something. But when you do that in Disco Elysium, there's an extra layer to it, right? Every time that you talk to a person, it tells you what they're thinking, and it tells you what that person thinks of you, and that makes you want to change your decision based on what they think of you, right? If this person, looks at you with a distrustful eye, maybe you want to increase your trust with them. I'd like to think that there's a way to put these themes more into the mechanics of the game and try to figure out what that gameplay would even look like. And maybe this game is just different from what I imagine it should be. But in my mind, I keep wanting to interact with that theme directly. Like, I want to feel that theme through my mechanics. I want more moments like those where I'm deciding the lives of people in the simulated universe, but for a reason, for some sort of reason. Like the first time that I came across one of those and I killed all the people in the universe, it was because I chose Obey to destroy the city, right? That was my direction that I was doing. So I felt like that was the mechanic, and thus I was kind of like this evil doer, and I went throughout the city trying to find all these simulated universes so that I could kill all of them. All the people that I talked to in between kind of felt like it was just offshoots. They just kind of felt like I was just within this world kind of learning about people. And it didn't really feel like I was doing anything meaningful. I guess what I'm saying is that there's not a whole lot of stakes in the game, and I want to feel those stakes. The only stakes that I feel at the moment are the impending destruction of the city. I didn't really feel any philosophical stakes. I didn't feel any stakes to killing the people in the universe. I didn't feel any stakes to ignoring some of the robots that were dying on the ground. I didn't really feel anything from it, and I want to feel that kind of stuff. This is one of those things about game worlds and game lore that is interesting to me, because I think there's some people that really like that kind of stuff, right? When they go into a game and they learn all about the lore and everything, they're basically treating it as a book, right? They just get into the game world and they start talking to people and they start absorbing all these themes around them. And it's like, that can definitely be a game by itself, and I have no qualms with that. I think that's totally fine. But in a game like Soma, right, where you're immediately connected to some of those themes via gameplay, that's the stuff that I connect with the most. And I think that's the stuff that makes those themes much stronger in games, where you can directly feel those things. It reminds me of that scene in Metal Gear Solid where Snake is holding the rocket launcher and he has to kill one of his friends in order to kill the Metal Gear. You're trying to fire the weapon and Snake says he can't do it, right? He just does not fire the weapon even though you tell him to. And it's like that kind of stuff, that kind of mechanic is directly connected to the state of mind that Snake is in. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to see more of in games, is that interactive quality of the storytelling, right? Put that emotional moment into the gameplay. That's my take on this whole thing. Thank you so much, Nanomega, for submitting this game and letting me just kind of pontificate about it. I hope that my talking did something for you guys. So thank you again so much, Nanomega, and that Joe thing in there. I'm not sure if that was a reference, but that was awesome. If you're an indie developer and you want to submit a game to me just to hear me pontificate about it, I'm not really trying to consult in the way that I used to before. These don't cost anything. These are free, or you can donate if you wish. But yeah, these are absolutely free. If you have a game that you actually want consulting for and you want some help with it, there is a channel called Design Frame who does this really well. He was featured on this channel a few times. Submit your game to him if you would like some design advice, right? He does these full write-ups and stuff, really good stuff. Check him out. There's a link in the description. Or you can check out my other channel if you're interested in more game design philosophy. It's called Games Over Coffee. There's also a link in the description. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you guys another time.